cautious about being overly optimistic, you know, but she's just been so healthy and she's so strong, and I just was kind of, I mean, I heard them say it and I didn't focus too much on it. What we had going on was bad enough and just had to get through that. And then the doctor came in and said, we just got some tests back and she is positive for HUS. And I remember having to have her repeat. I said, what? Like, how is this possible? And I remember crying a great deal at that point because I thought, oh my gosh, this is really serious. Like, this is not at all just something where a child has diarrhea and is admitted because they're dehydrated and need IV fluids. This is now like a medical thing that is very serious. And then they started talking about, well, most kids do very well. We've caught it very early. And the cases that I read about and heard about anecdotally, kids did do pretty well. Most didn't require dialysis. The majority of the bad stories you heard were the people that waited too long to go to the hospital. And I thought, well, we're in Mayo. She developed this at Mayo. Like, we have to be ahead. They could not really figure out why she was having this flash pulmonary edema. And they, you know, kept saying every kid is different. The HUS is very unpredictable. The nature of the disease, you just don't know the course, but there are still things that they would expect. And well, they said they couldn't really figure out why she was having these problems. So she was intubated in order for them to put in what's called a marker catheter. It's just a neck catheter for dialysis. And then she went on to have 2 more intubations, but one was an emergency intubation by the consultant in the PICU, and that was the worst night that we had. She was on all kinds of sedation medications, and the doctor ended up choosing to put her on a paralytic and put her in restraints, and she woke up and remembered quite a bit of that, so was very traumatized. She also went through horrible withdrawal from the sedation meds. So it was like watching your 7-year-old withdraw from narcotics, opiates or something, right? The itching and she didn't know who we were. She was talking about monsters. She was terrified. So they did end up. You knew who I was, but you thought that Mary was Monster, right? Well, remember the night that you saw monsters and spots on everyone? And the Loch Ness Monster living in the dome? I don't think you remember that time. This was the other time. She remembers a great deal from the from one of the nights. There were 2 different nights that she went into respiratory failure. But again, they couldn't figure out why. But we would get her X-rays, and the opacity was just like 100%. Like, it was crazy. It was like she was drowning. Like, her lungs were just completely, you know, there was so much fluid around them, she barely had an airway. So they kept giving her respiratory support, but then the one night it wasn't enough.